Hello and welcome to Insights from Elsewhere. My name is Cynthia Portugal. I am Brazilian and I live in São Paulo, Brazil. I'm the growth director at Insight Platforms. Insight Platforms is an online media business that helps researchers find new tools, learn how to use them, and see what's coming next. We host a directory, run conferences, and create content specialized for the Insight communities. We created this podcast to go beyond the big markets of North America and Western Europe. We are going to take a look at Insight professionals from Latin, Asia, and Africa to see how they work, what are the specific nuances of their countries, what are the specific things that tailor the insights landscape, and anything else about those countries. Today, I'm talking to Madoka Suganuma. She is based in Japan and she is an independent qualitative market researcher specialized in helping international clients understanding the mindset and the behaviors of the Japanese consumers. She is specialized in FMCG like food and beverages, beauty and personal care, healthcare, and technology. Welcome to Insights from Elsewhere, Madoka. It's a pleasure to have you here with me today.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Amazing. So let's start with you telling me what's your journey to market research? How did you end up here?
So, I kind of grew up between Tokyo and several different cities around the globe. I was born here in Tokyo, but I moved to Islamabad at age 3, and then I moved to Brussels, came back to Tokyo, then went to Vienna, and
Wow.
then I went to school in Wales. When in the meanwhile, I was also in Moscow as well. And then I came back to university in Tokyo. And afterwards, I went to Scotland. Oh, I forgot Singapore. I was also at Singapore as well. So I was around a lot of different cultures. And I was always switching between different cultures and observing how people behave. And I think that's where my interest started, although at that time I had no idea what market research was. Then I studied international relations and communication studies at university. My idea was that I wanted to understand how the world works. And that interest is also feeding into market research because we do find out how things work. And after a break, I came back to Japan to work at a small boutique research company. And that's how I started in the industry. And that company was bought by a bigger company, which is now called Carter JMRN. And then I decided I was going to go freelance. Initially, I thought I was going to be a translator because I had also been working as a translator for a long time. And then I realized there was a lot of work opportunities in market research as a freelancer. I started around 2013 and I continued to do that. I picked up some skills like project management, IDIs, doing ethnography, as well as semiotics. And I lots of healthcare related transcription, translation, and content analysis and things like that. So,
Your curiosity took you here.
yes.
Talking about the field of market research and insights, what's unique about it in Japan?
Yes. So, the Japanese, one thing about what's happening in the Japanese society is that it is extremely rapidly aging, and about 30% of the population is over 65. So, a lot of times, people are cutting off saying 65 and above, right? That's kind of
Yes.
a standard cutoff. But in Japan, that doesn't go because kind of life starts at 65. And especially considering the bubble generation who were um, finding jobs during the bubble era in the early 80s, no, the mid 80s to early 90s, are about to hit 60 years old around this time.
Think you can explain what is the bubble or the
Yes,
bubble age?
the bubble era is when the Japanese economy was rising and rising and rising, and there was a lot of money around, and people were spending a lot of money, and it seemed like the economic growth was never ending. Of course, at the end of the bubble era, it burst, and then there was stagnation for a long time. But anyway, the people who were very young when this was happening are becoming 60. And the thing to know about this generation is that they were always at the forefront of consumerism and forging their own path, like taking different paths from their conservative parents. And so they've always made their own new rules, and they've always been quick to adapt to technology. So considering this, we need to be really um, open-minded about who are the people who are going to be older, right? And um, for example, like you may associate backpacking in Southeast Asia about as something that only young people might do. But there's a trend where silver backpackers are seen. An anthropologist called Dr. Shakuto wrote about that, and Drago from the Potluck podcast actually picked it up. So it was very, very interesting to hear about that. So we need to be really open-minded.
Yes, understand like those different shifts in the society, right?
Mhm.
And thinking about insights, not just the insights, but consumers in general. What would you say are some challenges and opportunities in Japan right now?
I think one of the biggest challenges is when it comes to research is that Japanese people communicate and think quite differently from the people in the rest of Asia. I mean, not to say that Japan is the only country that's different, but even just within East Asia, Korea, Taiwan, China, and Japan, we all communicate very differently. And thinking that it's just one regional group is a big mistake because we do things very differently. And you cannot assume that, oh, they're all same, you know. You cannot do that. And
Hearing this a lot in all the podcasts because in when you think like all the countries in Latin Asia and Africa,
yes,
they are
yes,
often put together as one country, but
yeah,
that's not the reality in the end of the
no,
day.
yes. And also the percentage of fluent English speakers is quite low for a developed country. That is one kind of barrier and thing to keep in mind when coming to Japan. So when you do
No
research
problem.
in Japan, you cannot assume that people will understand the English questionnaires, or yeah, you have to localize it.
Yes. You were talking about the way you communicate. Could you elaborate a bit more? What do you mean by the differences in the way Japanese communicate?
Yes, so one example is that we may say one thing publicly, that's called tatemae, and then mean another thing in their real heart, which is honne. So this kind of having two opinions, or two,
Yes.
one's public facing and one like real opinion, is kind of one of the different ways we communicate.
So you need to understand For example, for you, it's easier to understand when people are saying something just outside their minds
Mm.
and something that they think you can relate to what they're really thinking, right?
Yes.
What are the things that normally other countries or head offices of big companies get wrong about the Japan?
Sometimes, like, they might try to use the same message across different markets. And I have a good story about this. I was told to test a kind of brand messaging concept, and it was done across different markets. I think it was originally in a European language, and then it was translated into English, German, French, and Japanese, and a few others.
Yeah.
And they hired translators, as they might think, and which worked fine in Germany, France, etc. English speaking country. It worked fine in those countries, but it just did not work in Japan. And they asked me why, and I told them because you did not hire a copywriter.
Okay.
If you just translate something, because I used to be a translator myself. I am a translator
Yeah.
myself, so I know that if you try to translate a message, especially a complicated one, into another language, and then you have to come out with the same number of words, and you have to come out with the same kind of structure. You have to preserve some of the original structure, right, as a translator. But it just sounds very wrong in Japanese. And
Because you have
so,
to write the way the Japanese
it,
think and
yeah,
speak about that
exactly.
idea.
Exactly. You
Okay.
have to write in a way that we think. Yeah, exactly. That is why it didn't work.
Many, many years ago, I was working at a research agency, and we had this big global project coming from in Brazil, coming from, I think it was United States. And in the English questionnaire, which would be kind of simple for us to translate, it was written how many pairs of jeans you have at home. In Brazil, you don't say pair of jeans, you say like a jeans, like one jeans. So pair of jeans makes us thinking, okay, every couple of jeans. The translator translated like how many pairs of jeans you have. And then when we got the responses, the numbers were really off. And we were like, why is that? When we went back to the questionnaire, it was pairs of jeans, and no one understood what it meant. So some
Mm.
people duplicated their jeans. Some people said that they had like only three pairs of jeans, but in fact it was six. It was a nightmare. We had
Oh.
to go back into the fieldwork and re-ask the questions because even when it seems simple, and I
Mm-mm.
would say that English to Portuguese is quite simple to translate, you still need to understand the nuances, right?
Yeah, that is right.
Mm.
Well, that sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, yeah, it's
From
a
a very
research
simple
nightmare.
example. Yeah.
When you have to go back field work and do
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
again,
yeah.
it's a nightmare. And of course, a big waste of money.
Yes, true.
Madoka, thinking about research technology, what's your experience with tools, with the platforms that are around for research technology?
So, as a qualitative researcher, I've used platforms for online communities. I've used several of them, like for online communities or diary studies,
Yeah,
or to take videos, and it works. But uh, Japanese people are super sensitive to any sign of things not being completely localized. So
really?
if there is
Okay.
one thing that is in English, left in English, it makes them nervous.
It's a barrier.
It's a barrier,
Okay.
yes. So I always check before we start the online community. I always ask to have access within the community as a respondent and make sure everything looks okay and no like mistranslations or no wrong because we do put in the translations, but sometimes, the translator doesn't know how the platform works and the it is uploaded as it is or something. So just to make sure everything looks fine, I do that. Yes.
Are there any local tools for doing communities or interviews in Japan, or you always have to take from outside?
Um, I think because I'm usually working with international
Okay.
agencies, so I'm usually and I can speak English, so I'm usually
Yeah.
using international tools. But I think there's for sure an opportunity in um, making these tools available in more tools available in Japanese as well, for sure.
Of course.
Especially, I think those international tools like lack kind of language support or interface support in the back end as well. Like you cannot do everything in Japanese, so I think there's an opportunity there as well.
Wow. Do you do face to face still in Japan? Like, do you have many projects that are face to face?
Yes, yes, I think mainly like a lot of I don't do focus groups myself, but a lot of focus
Okay.
groups and ethnography studies, those things. But yes, of course, because it's cheaper and quicker, like online is more prevalent.
Thinking about those tools, so one barrier is the language, but are there any ways of working or how they work that doesn't relate to how the Japanese people are or how they think or how they do stuff?
When it comes to AI, like as I mentioned earlier in the conversation, that
Yeah,
there's a gap between what people are actually thinking and what people say publicly.
yeah.
Um, at this stage, anyway, AI cannot really distinguish between the two, and that is a problem because if we're not understanding, if somebody who doesn't have the cultural understanding look at the results and say, "Oh, but it says it's positive," and they must like it,
Okay.
this might not be true. And we have to really understand why they answered in a certain way in order to understand this result correctly, right?
Still a big gap between what the large language models can read and interpret from what the
Mhm.
Japanese are really saying and thinking, right?
Yeah.
So this is one of the biggest challenges for research technology. Any other thing that you can think about? It can be AI or can be anything about technology or even habits. Because you talked a bit to me before about how people are more closed to things from Japan and with the aging society. The Japanese people, are they receptive to technology?
Yes, I would
Like,
say so. In general, everybody has a smartphone. Some people have two. I think there's more phones than the population. Everybody has a smartphone, and generally, not everybody has a computer these days, though.
right,
They
they
may
use
have a
the
smartphone,
smartphone.
but young people, I know not everybody has a laptop or desktop computer.
Mm.
They just get by with their smartphones.
Oh my God, I can't read the smartphone. At some point, I need a big screen.
As we age, I think the small smartphone screen becomes a bit of a struggle, right?
Yes. Yes, I mean, in exactly that age, actually. I would say that this is another, I don't know if it's a challenge or opportunity, but the tools for research, market research, they need to be mobile friendly too.
Yes, I would say so. Yes.
Now, thinking about AI specifically, and not just about insights, but how do you see it changing the landscape in Japan?
I think the way we relate to technology is quite interesting. It's been received quite positively. AI, arrival of AI and robots and robotic technology and things like that. Because of the rapidly declining population, we won't have enough people to workers. And in that sense, rather than being scared of AI taking over our jobs, I think we kind of see it as a help that can enhance our needs. And also, people are receiving emotional support kind of AI very positively. And
How does it work, the emotional support?
for example, recently there was Casio released a robot that is enhanced with AI, and it is cute little fluffy rabbit or hamster or something like that. And it squeaks and it moves and it helps you. I think it really specialize in making you feel emotionally connected to a little animal. Of course, the background is that not everybody can have a pet in Japan because of the small environment, small housing environment. It's very strict. A lot of apartments don't allow any pets, and it's more expensive to move to one that allows them. So not everybody can afford to, and especially older people are concerned that if they have a pet now, they cannot take care when they get older. That is a problem. So there's a big need for kind of
The
little,
need for the pet exists, but there are no ways to have them.
yeah. And then so this AI enhanced robots is coming into place, and also it's a lot cheaper than the other ones like Aibo and Novot are like a lot way more expensive than this
Casio one.
Mufflin,
What is the
Mufflin,
name? Muffling.
Mufflin,
Muffling.
Mufflin. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I saw the article you sent me. They are really cute.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that it does well is that it doesn't even have a camera, right? Like it's very low tech actually. Like low tech as in it's high tech, but not very high end for a robot. It doesn't have
Okay.
a camera. It doesn't listen. It does listen to you actually. It does listen to you, but it doesn't have a camera. And by reducing that, it doesn't move on its own either. Like it doesn't go away, walk away from you. So I think by focusing on certain things that are really like focusing on emotional connection part, I think it's very interesting how they manage to create something that's resonating with a lot of people.
Cool. So thinking about like Japanese consumer, you are specialized in localizing foreign strategies in Japan. When you think about the areas where you work, like FMCG, do you have any example of what is completely different in Japan that you often have to tell clients?
The Japanese people are constantly bombarded with new products especially in
Mm.
FMCG, that just releasing one thing is not good. You need to have seasonal specials. You need to really to get a foothold into the Japanese market is really hard, but you need to find a way where you completely localize it. For example, like Kit Kat managed to do it very well. They came to Japan as a chocolate bar, and until they realized there was a Japanese pun, language based pun of Kitokatsu, which is I'll hopefully win. And they made it into a special package where you can write in messages onto the chocolate um, for people who are taking exams, university entrance exams, especially.
Yeah.
So finding the Japanese, like how to break into the Japanese market can be quite down to really understanding the local culture.
The differences and those nuances.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. What is the coolest thing about research technology, AI, that you heard of lately? It can be something that you used or didn't use, you're curious about. What's the coolest thing?
I think the use of AI for interactive personas is very interesting. I think I haven't used it myself, but I can understand how it can be extremely useful and very enriching experience in understanding the personas rather than just having them on a piece of paper to become it becoming interactive. So I think that's very interesting and exciting.
Well, and like when doing segmentations, that we would think about segments of people, names to talk about those people to try and make them alive. And now you can see them acting like people. It's
Mm-hmm.
amazing how those things changes. Well, we're wrapping up. So very quick questions for you. What is your favorite research methodology?
I would have to say ethnography because it gives you such rich contextual data, including visual and all the senses.
Thinking about market research in general, what is the most exciting trend today?
I really enjoy, you know what? I really enjoy immersive experiences for teams. Rather than just sitting at the back room of the research facility, we can organize like tours full of real life experiences, and
How is
people
that?
seem to really be really into that.
How does it work, those experiences?
Usually, if we're doing research on a theme, we would organize like visits to different shops or facilities that facilitate those understanding of the local market. So it may include cafes, bars, different kind of themed places. Yeah.
So it's not just about asking, but observing too, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what would be your piece of advice for someone starting the career in market research today?
You need to be very adaptable and curious. Adaptable because I think market research as an industry is always kind of reinventing itself and asking questions about its own existence, especially now with AI. And then curious because you need to be curious about people and the fundamental quality required to be a qual researcher, I think.
Thank you so much, Madoka.
Thank you,
It's
Cynthia.
very, I love that. So I would like to thank you and thank everyone listening to the Insights from Elsewhere podcast. Today we talked to Madoka Suganuma. She is an independent qualitative researcher with a deep understanding of the Japanese and the European cultures. And she explained those differences in the Japanese society, language, and market to help out to localize foreign products and strategies into the consumers of Japan. She talked about the aging society, the ways that Japanese communicate, and how AI is being used for emotional support as well in Japan. Thank you very much for being with us today, Madoka. It is a pleasure to speak to you and to understand more about the Japanese culture. And stay tuned for upcoming episodes soon. Learn more about Insight platforms and what's to come and events and everything by subscribing to Insight platforms. You can get weekly updates straight into your mailbox about webinars, podcasts, events, ebooks, and much more for the industry of insights. Madoka, a pleasure to talk to you and hope to speak soon. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. It was a pleasure to
Bye
be.
bye.
Bye.